Hey everybody, it's Minius, and recently Electronic Arts invited me to play Mass Effect Andromeda. I got about 18 hours of it. It was officially sponsored by EA, which is what the little thing in the corner means. And this is a full-on question and answer type video that is going to be unlike anything I've done before. First of all, I like to highly structure my videos with a script and get some great visuals that go along with this stuff, and this video has pretty much zero visuals and no script, which has to do with the time constraints of making this video and getting to as many questions as possible, and has to do with exactly what I can show you, which is not much, but I can talk about things, so I'm going to do that here. So consider this video more of a podcast, a question and answer podcast. There are a whole bunch of questions here. If you have more, go to the comment section and ask them, and I will actually be able to answer questions that are not story related, or not character related, and that goes into the romances too. This Q&A is basically as spoiler-free as possible. I specifically chose out questions that aren't story-related and will not ruin the game for you. This is mostly stuff on the technical side and basic questions. You should be safe in watching this, but I can start with this. This game's worth playing, so if you already know you're going to play it and want to explore it fully, you may just want to wait and play the game. But here are some minor questions, a whole bunch of them. Starting with, Eroa2 wants to know about scanning, if it's balanced or is it too much and how often you need to scan. I literally never noticed the scanning mechanic as far as it being too much. Except when I first started, I kind of wanted to scan everything because I thought it was cool, but I never felt forced to scan things more than I want. I didn't play a whole bunch of the game, but I never felt like that was a problem. Swag Ninja wants to know, are you forced to wear a helmet on missions? You are not. In fact, you can take off your helmet and walk around in hazard zones and be perfectly, well, at least the same as you were if you had a helmet on. So you do not need to wear a helmet. You are not forced to wear a helmet. Log Dude, do I have a favorite combination of powers? Kind of. I want to experiment a bunch more, but I really liked being able to use the tactical cloak and get bonus ability damage off of it, like being able to fire abilities. I think that could be very, very neat. The one combo that I want to play around with more is actually tactical cloak and then use flamethrower and spray a bunch of people. You can get a multi-second cloak bonus after you uncloak, and I think that would be effective with the flamethrower. I want to try that out. So that's my current answer. It's going to change though. Piotr asks, is it possible to set a biotic combo on an armored enemy? Yeah, it is actually. In fact, Singularity is one of those that you can do it with. The Singularity doesn't actually damage the enemy, but it does prime them. So that is definitely a thing. Trevor the Dragon wants to know about Skyrim. He's a joke question, but it's not really a joke question because it's kind of interesting. The size of this game, I was comparing it to Skyrim in my head. So in a way, yes, and the comparison is about size. Skyrim and really Elder Scrolls games and Fallout, those games are huge. This game is huge. Along that lines, yes, it is Mass Effect Andromeda in Skyrim, but there's a story there too, and the story is interesting, and there are characters, and those are things that are not in Skyrim. So the answer is both yes and no, but that may or may not answer your question. Matthew wants to know, how easy was it to craft armor and weapons? It was very easy. The interface was actually pretty simple. The system appeared to go a bit deeper than I saw, because I only was able to play it for a little bit. I mean, I played for 18 hours. It didn't feel like I played for 18 hours, which is good. But it's easy. It's not complicated. It's pretty straightforward. Technically, you're crafting, but it's not quite in the same way as some previous games. It's a lot simpler than that. Marcus wants to know if the ATIS is in the game. I didn't see it. I didn't see the ATIS. There are guns that look like that, but they're actually Helios cluster guns. So the ATIS is probably not in the game, but there might be some hidden there. You should know about these guns, though. There is a chance that all of these guns are going to be added later. That was specifically said. So DLC, I guess in the case of single player, it would be paid. But in multiplayer, they'd probably just drop them in there. So there is a very good chance that the ATIS will be coming at some point, especially given how popular it is. Daniel wants to know how much I enjoyed the dialogue aspect of the game. Actually, I thought the dialogue was a little bit light, much more along the lines of Mass Effect 3 than the previous games. The counter argument to disappointment in that is that this game appears to be much larger overall than the previous game. So there's probably more dialogue in this game than there has been in any other game, but there's less splitting of the dialogue. Sometimes there's only 2 dialogue options. Actually, frequently there are only 2 dialogue options when you want more, which is a little disappointing, but it seems to work. Probably not going to please everybody, though. Sarah Ryder has come back in time and wants to know more about the level system because she wants to level up as much as she can. I did not get that far into the level system, but from what I saw, you can level up infinitely. You level up all the way, clear the game 100%, go into New Game Plus, bring that level in, and then do it again. And then do it again, and then do it again. So you should be able to max out everything by doing every little thing. It's going to take multiple playthroughs, though. You will not be able to max out every ability in one playthrough. Unless you can just go around killing it. Like, that'd be one hell of a grind. Oh, that sounds awful. Someone's going to do that, too. Someone's going to do that and post it on YouTube. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to sit there and grind enemies to level up infinitely. That sounds awful. Nimish Hashstar, and I don't know how to pronounce that, wants to know multiple things. Would I recommend this game to longtime fans, newcomers, or people in between? All 3, really. I think longtime fans are going to like it because it's Mass Effect. When I first started playing the game, it felt like a new sci-fi RPG that I was interested in right away. I mean, even aside from the Mass Effect thing. So whether you're new to the series or old to the series, you're going to find something. Does the game look as good in-game as it does in the trailer? I suppose the answer is not quite. Depends on what you're looking in it. It looks good. It definitely looks good. Cutscene trailer footage can't really be matched in-game. And the third question, does this game make up for the ending of Mass Effect 3? Assuming you feel the way about Mass Effect 3's ending as most people, there is nothing that makes up for that ending. It does not matter what they do. The ending is still the ending. So the answer to that one is no. Tran wants to know, only one question, is the game worth buying? Yeah, it's worth buying, especially if you're asking me questions about it on a channel that's not very big. You're already interested. You're not going to be disappointed in it. That's for sure. I didn't play it all the way through, so who knows if there's some story thing at the end that dissembles the whole thing. I can't speak to that, and that certainly has happened in the case of Mass Effect for many people. But I absolutely would recommend this game. I'm biased, but I would recommend this game. I think you should buy it. Can you remap the controls? I played on PC, and you could remap the controls on PC. I do not know about the console versions. I assume that would extend to that. It'd be weird if it didn't. KitKats. If using a PC, is the keyboard and mouse just as intuitive, or do we need a controller? So this isn't a question that I can answer well because I don't play a whole lot of games on the PC unless they're PC specific like RTSs and such. But I did ask a lot of the people around me who were mostly PC gamers, and the official quote that I can go with is that there were no complaints about it. So you will not really need to use a controller. It's going to be fine. That's as much as I can say, though, and that's coming secondhand. Okay, no story spoilers. From what I saw, I can't say that the initiative makes sense in the context of lore. It's kind of out of place. It's outside the universe. It's kind of an excuse to escape the original trilogy. It's a lot more like a reboot. But I didn't see enough to properly answer this question. There could be something down the line that makes it fit. Tell us about combat difficulty and general AI. It's interesting. I know there were some concerns about artificial intelligence of the enemies in the game. That wasn't the case for anything other than the animal creatures, which are a little bit off. I wouldn't say the humanoids are brilliant in their attacks, but they actually do try to work around you, and you can ramp up the combat difficulty and give yourself a challenge for sure. I'll have to leave the teammates thing to you playing the game. And I think I mentioned the dialogue system thing already. Firestream has a stupid question. I didn't think it was a stupid question. I actually saw this ahead of time and tested it. Can you go sit on benches? I could not. I did not try very hard. I mean, I could have gone around and sat on every single possible bench, or tried to, but the couple benches that I tried to sit on, I could not sit on. There very well may be a bench or a chair somewhere that can do that. I did not find it, and again, I've had 18 hours with the game, which seems like a lot. It would have been really, really dumb to spend 20 minutes trying to sit on a bench. Amusing, but probably not a good use of my time. David has a question in Fear. How buggy is the game? It's a little buggy. It's not perfectly smooth. I don't know how many games at launch are like that. There are a couple. Not games of this size, though. And I gotta reiterate that. This game's huge. Not just in the area that you can cover, but in the amount of content, the stuff you can interact with. I don't see how it can't be somewhat buggy. It's certainly not a disaster. You do run into bugs. I didn't have the game break at all. I think someone else did around me, but it's not going to be an issue, I think. Showtime HBO Sports. I don't believe that. You're not Showtime or HBO or Sports. The question, though, is the game still Mass Effect? Yeah, it's still Mass Effect. It starts off not quite feeling very Mass Effect-y, but it gets there pretty quick, and then you're like, okay, yeah, this is a Mass Effect game, but it's new. It's a lot like Mass Effect 1 in the way that it's Mass Effect. Vanessa wants to know, has my excitement increased or decreased? It actually increased. Now, I'd like to think that I was doing very well with moderating my excitement for this game, which sounds kind of ridiculous because I run a YouTube channel about Mass Effect. But I was going in there, wondering, maybe this isn't going to quite work out. I have no doubts about this game. This game is going to be good. I really think so. So, knowing that, my excitement level has increased. Jeffrey, no problem. Can we go pure melee build? You can, but I don't think it's going to work. The biggest issue with going pure melee is the melee animations aren't really designed for taking on multiple enemies. You can go in there with the quicker ones and kind of rapidly stab, which I suppose would be the way you could get it to work. But the swords and the hammers, the animation's too long. You're just going to be stuck there. The game is not designed for going pure melee. Whether or not that changes for multiplayer or they have a special build there, I don't know, but not in the single player. That would be my guess. Ahmed wants to ask every single question he can think of. I will answer the ones that I can. How long is the story campaign start to finish? Didn't get far enough to know. My current guess is 40 hours. Straight story, blitzing the story, you can do it in 40 hours. That's my guess. I don't think you should play it that way, but if you need to, you can do it. How good is the Nomad handle? Not bad. Actually, I enjoyed the Nomad a lot more than I thought I would. It certainly has more to it than the previous Nomad, even though you can't shoot with it. It works in the context. We'll see if that gets tiring after more time, but I did enjoy my time with the Nomad, and it handled, I wouldn't say it was elite, but it certainly handled above my expectations. I'll have to skip the character creator 1. I think I talked about the enemies. Sam question had to skip. I know there were a whole bunch of armor sets, and there are a whole bunch of weapons. As far as heavy weapons, though, I didn't see any, and there is not a heavy weapon slot. I feel, unfortunately, like I can't answer many of your questions, so this might be disappointing. But stick around, I might be able to get to them eventually. I feel like I'm not allowed to actually answer your questions, a lot of them, but those ones I can answer. Kitty of Shadows wants to know about the game controls. They felt actually a lot smoother than Mass Effect games have felt in the past. It takes a little bit of adjustment to them. I wouldn't call them, bungee controls or something like that, but it was pretty smooth. And the profile system, that's kind of a tough question to answer. Indifferent is not the right word. It was fine. The profiles do a couple other things that aren't just passive bonuses, and I didn't get to test those out properly. But I actually prefer this system than classes because I like to be able to mix and match. I think from a technical standpoint, if you are a soldier in the Mass Effect world, or soldier is not the right word because that's an actual class. If you are going into combat, let's say, and you need to train, I don't see why you should be limited to one set of stuff. So I like this system a lot more than the previous system. As for the profile stuff, I need to explore it further. And unfortunately, I can't talk about the characters yet. And I kind of don't think I want to. I'm going to be mean about that. I'm going to make you play the game. Adam asks, how does the tone of the game stack up against the Trilogy? I think I probably mentioned this already, and it's going to be in like every frickin' video, so you're going to be tired of this when you hear it. It stacks up very favorably with Mass Effect 1. It feels like a Mass Effect 1 game, like a sequel to Mass Effect 1 if it was made properly. as a sequel to Mass Effect 1. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it fits, that's for sure. I did not notice the youthfulness of the crew doing anything to mess with the story material. Honestly, they mentioned the youthfulness of the crew. I don't think this crew is that much younger. I mean, even Shepard wasn't that old. Shepard was just accomplished. As far as the new dialogue wheel, I think you're able to articulate yourself about the same. About the same. There's not as many options as you'd like, but still, it's kind of a renegade Paragon answer. Wasn't a great amount of options either from the standpoint of human speech. So it should feel about the same, at least about the same as Mass Effect 3. There are absolutely ways to get weapons and armor without crafting. You can buy it in the store, you can loot it from people. It is definitely not mandatory. I do not know, though, if there are items that match the high-end crafted items. But also, as far as your hate for crafting, this is really basic. It's pretty plug and play. You don't have to tweak with it too much. You may not hate this system. You may not like it, but I don't think you'll hate it. And you definitely don't even need to do it in the first place, which was your question. All right, Matt wants to know about PB's loyalty mission and hand-holding. You know, it's kind of interesting. I didn't feel like my hand was being held. When I played the game, I did not get to PB's mission at all, and I do not know if that's the case throughout the game or particular things. It's kind of a weird offset. In fact, there were some times where, like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here, and you have to look around. So that might depend on the missions, and it might depend on the aspects, but I do not feel like there was too much hand-holding, and that is an accurate representation of the game, which I believe is your question. Are the facial animations shit or not? They're not good. I don't know what's going on with that. There's not really a way to sugarcoat it. The facial animations are off. How much that affects you is going to depend on what kind of gamer, what kind of person you are. It didn't bother me too much, and that stuff normally doesn't bother me, but I noticed it enough that there's a chance it's going to really bother some of you. That's probably, if you're going to point out one issue with the game, that would be, or if you were going to point out a list of issues, that would be on the top. Which is actually not bad for a game, although in a dialogue game like Mass Effect, that's not a good thing necessarily. I hope they fix the stupid AI. The animal AI is stupid. The other AI is not stupid. It's average. It's kind of weird that, for whatever reason, the animals are as dumb as they appear, and they're easy to trick and fool, which is fine, but usually you're not facing just animals. Usually it's a mix. I don't think AI is going to be a problem. It's certainly not elite quality, but it's not stupid overall, I would say. I can't get too much into character creator, but yes, you can fully customize your writer's face. I believe I can say that. We're going to see if this gets edited. Jay wants to know about the beards. The beards aren't really there. It's not high beard quality, that's for sure. And there are not designated Nomad parking areas. So that's a very disappointing answer to your question, Jay. I'm sorry. That's like 0 for 2. Ezra wants to know if the music was as badass as the Trilogy. I would say no. I would say the Trilogy's music is better. I didn't get deep enough into the game, and there are particular tracks in the Mass Effect Trilogy that kind of stand out and stick with me personally. And I only felt like one of the tracks matched up. But again, they didn't let us go too deep into the game. Or we could go in deep into the game, but it wasn't going to accomplish anything because we couldn't record it or talk about it or anything like that. So my current answer is no. There might be some gems in there, but I don't know if it's necessarily disappointing. Depends on your taste, I suppose. I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing what people think. This is a tougher question for me. I did experience both from my standpoint and where I've been as a gamer. I mean, growing up as a kid and really only being able to afford console games or old way back playing arcade games. I like controllers better, but I think the answer to this is, what do you like to play with better? And that is the correct answer. If you like playing with a keyboard and mouse, it appears that that's going to work fine. Certainly work fine with the people that were playing the game with me. How does the loot system work? That's a very broad question. There's a couple things you can loot. You can loot, weapons straight up. You can loot armor straight up. You can loot mods and stuff like that attached to it. And then you can sell that stuff, or you can break down the weapons. There isn't junk mixed in that you can sell for just cash, from what I remember. But it's a pretty basic stuff. You will loot things that you can use. You will loot things that you want to get rid of. I don't know if going around and trying to gain loot is the best way to get better gear, but I was only on a couple planets, so who knows deeper in. That probably didn't answer your question very well. Oh man, please rate how I'm doing by clicking like or dislike. Eric, what is the penalty for going over the item limit? You can't pick up items anymore. It's not a encumbered system where you slow down. They just literally do not let you pick up an item. You can destroy items, or you can sell them. I don't think you can disassemble them on location. You need to go to a station, but basically the only penalty is you cannot pick up new items, so it's good to have a little bit of range. As far as being forced to switch to a profile, I never felt like I was forced to play in a specific way. It worked when I was doing this. Now, if you're going on, let's say, an insanity run, there's a very real chance that you will need to play specific profiles against specific enemies. I did not play much on Insanity. I played some on Hardcore and still was able to get by with the abilities I wanted to use, but I was not a very high level at all, so I don't think I can answer that question properly, but my guess would be no, you're not really going to be forced to switch unless you're going at the absolute highest level, and even then, you might be able to get away with playing exactly the way you want to play. At least I think it's manageable. There's no way that it's going to be that difficult. David wants to know about environmental hazards. It takes a little bit of getting used to deal with the environmental hazards, but it wasn't that cumbersome. Now, I only went on a couple planets, and the planets I went on didn't have extreme hazards on them. They were avoidable, and you kind of learned how to deal with it. It wasn't a big deal. It adds a little bit to it. Perhaps further on, it becomes cumbersome, but in the planets that I played, it was a slight challenge. That's what I'm going to put with it. A slight challenge. Victor wants to know about depth in colonization. I'm going to be honest here. I colonized one planet. The depth was it's literally a decision between one type or other type, and that's it. And I didn't really get to see the effects of that. I don't see there being much depth here at all. And I don't think you should expect that. And I don't remember at any point any developer ever saying there's a bunch of depth. Really, the only thing that was said, and I believe it was leaked, was that you can choose different type of colonies that give you probably light bonuses. Something like that. It's not quite like the Inquisition War Table, but it'd be light bonuses. And I don't even know what those are because, as I said, I only got to the one thing and didn't even get to see the effect of it. But that's a guess at this point. I would temper your expectations if you're looking to go in there and do all kinds of intricate stuff that's not really what this game is about. So as far as the multiplayer, I did not get to play the multiplayer. I was kind of bummed. But I specifically asked multiple people who do know, like developers and people behind there, you don't have to play the multiplayer at all. The multiplayer does nothing for the single-player campaign other than helping you get loot, but you can also get that same loot by just playing the single-player campaign. The multiplayer is basically irrelevant to the single-player if you want it to be. Chaz wants to know if I liked or loved the intro to the game. I liked it. I thought it was a little bit slow and started getting better as it moved forward. I wouldn't say it's in the level of a Knights of the Old Republic or Mass Effect 2 beginning, but it has things that are likable about it. A little bit slow, though, like I said. Mark wants to know how the controls differ from Mass Effect 3. Not much. There's a couple buttons that do different things, but for the most part, it feels pretty familiar. You can jump in from playing Mass Effect 3 and play Mass Effect Andromeda, and within a short amount of time, you'll get it. The only big difference is the way cover works. There is no sticky cover, so that takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do that, they're pretty similar. So between zoomed-in dialogue, like you got a lot in Inquisition, and cutscene, like it's kind of a mix. I would say it's much more along the lines of Mass Effect 3 than it is of Dragon Age Inquisition. A lot more, like face-to-face looking back and forth instead of just a zoomed-in cutscene. It's a little bit of a mix, and that's only in the slice of the game that I played. Ooh, Mr. Fight wants to know what would I rate the game out of 10? Boy, this is not a fair question because I think you can specifically look at Mass Effect 3 and ask me after I played 10, 15 hours of it what I would have rated out of 10, and I would have given it a 10, and the ending removed that 10. So with that in mind, from what I've played, I'm going to give it a 9.5. It's very good. It is very good. The only thing that's going to hurt it is if the story can't come together in a way that it appears like it could. What about puzzles? The puzzles that I came across were very, well, they're not simple, but basic. It was basically like Alien Sudoku. If you played any Sudoku, then it's kind of like that. It's a little bit of a quirk to it. Those were the puzzles I saw. I do not know if there are more of them. They can be challenging, but I believe they're set. So if you really want to, you can just go online and get all the answers. But there's difficulty there. Hello, Mr. Captain. Yes, there is a maximum for inventory. It's 50 from what I saw. And what wowed me most about the game, interestingly enough, was the story aspect. I did not expect to be as interested in the story as I was, which is interesting for a Mass Effect game. I kind of wasn't expecting that to match previous Mass Effect games, but I think it did. It's very, very interesting. I can't get into what's interesting, and I probably shouldn't. I should let you get into what's interesting. But that would be the biggest wow that I took away from that. I was like, wow, I'm legitimately interested in where this is going. Duckwater Foundation asked about concern to the game. This is a tough question to ask because, well, everything is overblown by the fans. It's the internet. The internet is a place where overblown things happen. So you get on both ends, right? You know, people very concerned about the game and they'll overblow the concerns. And at the same point, you'll get people on the other end who are overblowing how awesome the game is. There are some concerns that match on the technical side. I assume as far as gameplay, story, that kind of stuff, probably overblown. Although I don't remember seeing a whole lot of concerns. I should look harder. I'm not a very good Mass Effect YouTuber, apparently. Sammy wants to know about the flow of the game and combat to the Nomad and the Tempest. It's a little bit smoother. I think some of the transitions take a little bit longer than I would like, especially in space. But the combat to the Nomad and then back to combat, that seemed to work pretty well. This is a follow-up question, good one by Owen, and this is an accident, so sweet. How is the fluidity of transitions from station to ship to planet? It's a bit slow. They're not loading screens. It's kind of just like a slow-moving move through space, and I mentioned slow a little bit. I guess I prefer that to loading screens, but I'm not sure. It's fluid, but if this fluid was very thick and didn't flow very well. Get that analogy. What a wordsmith I am. This is the very popular question. Are the planets in Andromeda filled with things to do, or are they more empty and just looking good? There are many things to do in these worlds, not necessarily on the high end of open world things where every square inch is covered with something to do. There are more camps that are spread out, but not difficult to get to, and more importantly, fun to take on, and some of them lead to other things that are worth doing. And then there are other side quests that are, just checking off a list of touching all these things, taking out these enemies. It's a mix. Thomas, I don't know what kind of artist you are, but probably, yeah, you will be able to make Ryder look like Shepard. I do not know why you'd want to do that. That'd be very weird. Actually, I think that's a popular question. You should be able to do it. That's all that matters, I guess. Michael wants to know how much, this is a great question, how much time do I estimate it will take for a fully finished Mass Effect Andromeda? I'm going to take this question as how long would it take someone who wants to beat the game in a pretty solid way, how long would it take them to beat everything? This is a hot topic with all the people who played the game. The number is 100 to 200 hours. I think if you really want to play it, it might be closer to 150 to 200. Then again, I only played a little bit, and who knows how much people are interested, but it's a very large game. It is massive. It's unlike any other Mass Effect game, and much bigger than Inquisition, especially from a things to do standpoint. Okay, Joseph wants to know a little bit more about, these are hazard environments. Specifically, if you stay out in the heat too long, basically you have a health bar called life support. And if you are out in hazard zones for too long, your life support will diminish. And if your life support runs out, then it will damage health. That's basically the way it works. You can get around this easily, at least on the light planets that I was on. There might be some missions or planets further on that this is more difficult to deal with, but there are ways to deal with it, and it's not a huge issue, and it actually kind of adds something to the game, I think, which is what they were going for. Mr. Big Perm wants to know about mobs being bullet spongy. Boy, there are a couple ones that are somewhat bullet spongy, but the other ones they're just normal mobs for the most part. Most of the difficulty, if you were to increase it, has to do with the amount of damage that the enemies bring to you. As far as weapons and abilities, I didn't get to test out the weapons enough, at least the higher end ones, because you need lots to get the best weapons. But if you put points into abilities, yeah, your damage will go up. That's for sure. And you actually need that to go out into the world and take on the enemies that are further away from your starting point on each world. Cypher wants to know about the potential super fast-paced combat versus the RPG strategy style. It's definitely on the super fast-paced side. As far as the RPG style, I'm not entirely sure what people mean by that, because not everybody's on the same page. I've been meaning to get this video for a while. It's definitely more of an action game with RPG as the foundation. There are old school RPGs that have an old school type combat that was really, I think, more influenced by the technology at the time than by what they can do. Now you get into games like The Witcher. I mean, that's definitely an RPG, and it definitely has fast-paced combat. So that's more along the lines there. So that's all the questions I'm getting to here. If you have further questions, like I said, hit me up in the comments section. And further on, I can talk about story details and romances and that kind of stuff, which I'll do. I think the policy I'm going to have is I'm not going to talk about story elements for a full 2 weeks after the game releases. So I'm going to let you guys play it because this game is worth playing. But ask questions in the comments section and I'll get to many of them. This video, like I said, is unique. I don't think I'm going to do too many more of these unless this was ridiculously entertaining. So let me know in the comments section, was this worth doing? I think in this situation, as far as getting you information about the game, this works. In the future, probably won't do too many more of these unless you really, really like it. Because actually, this is kind of fun for me. But let me know. If you like this video, please give it a like, because it really helps out the channel. And keep an eye on MiniusGC for lots of Mass Effect Andromeda. But for now,
I should go.